Any research or any analysis on how you can decrease the length of sale or the average time to close?
Yeah. So in last year's state of revenue growth, our report that we published, again, talking to those 811 revenue leaders and then analyzing 1.3 million opportunities worked in 2024. We did exactly that, right? We looked at the metric sales velocity and the four components that make that up. So looking at number of ops, what's the size of those ops in terms of deal size, at what clip are we closing those at a conversion win rate, and then finally how long does it take in terms of deal duration or sales cycle length. What we found is that for those companies using AI, they're able to increase seller capacity by about 13%. So we saw from 2023 to 2024, sellers on average were working about 13% more opportunities if they were using AI. In terms of average deal size, we saw a modest increase of about 6%. Right. So again, nothing to shake. It sounds small, but if we start to add up across all of these components, it makes an impact. And then about a 3% increase in win rate. And this is not like percentage points. So it didn't go from like a 20% close rate to 23. We're talking about like 3% increment, as a proportion of that original close rate. What we didn't see is that deal duration stayed pretty much consistent. Again, across all deals, it was about 69 days on average from 2023 to 2024. But that
Interesting.
13% increase in capacity, that 6% increase in deal size, and that 3% increase in win rate actually increased sales velocity. So the full metric about 23%. So again, this just shows you that like if we can move the needle a small amount across multiple metrics, like the impact to revenue and specifically our growth and how quickly we're growing as an organization is pretty transformational. And so I would continue to look for AI to hopefully move those needles in the positive direction. What I'd really love to see is that deal duration. We know, and based on our own analysis of some of the AI functionality that Gong offers, we are decreasing sales cycle length for sales teams. And so I'd like to see at a broader scale across the industry, like how are we seeing that come to fruition for revenue teams?
Interesting. Interesting. Oh, that's amazing. And I believe it that making those incremental improvements across the board add up, that they can have a dramatic improvement over time. No, that's great. So on the flip side of things, you guys probably have a ton of data too on red flags for deals. What have you guys seen to be those indicators of deals going south that reps can hopefully learn from and avoid?
Yeah, so we've had a product in market, Gong Forecast, for over 2 years now, and it's one of Gong's fastest growing products. Kind of forecasting solutions have existed, and AI or predictive modeling has existed for a very long time. I would argue probably the early use cases across revenue of AI were to better understand deal health. Are these deals going to close and have that predictability to drive efficient growth? One of the really interesting things that Gong Forecast has offered to our customers is the ability to add context to your forecasting process. And so if we think about historically, most forecasting models are one, they're manually entered by reps, probably like a bottoms up roll up. The other thing about it is we're typically analyzing CRM data, which is activity based and typically binary or quantities of information, right? And so maybe email velocity, for instance, I think historically is a pretty good indicator of deal health, right? Are we exchanging a certain volume of email back and forth in a certain time span? So like what's the velocity of that email look like? What we're finding is that when we add context to that, it tells a whole different story. So for instance, this is actually a study we ran. Hey, I have super high email velocity. Everything's great, right? Green flags abound. What we actually found is that if 50% or more of those emails that were exchanged within that given amount of time, particularly late stage opportunities, are involved or talking about scheduling, right? So, hey, does this time work for you to chat on Friday, Dave? Hey, just sent across an invite, so you can't make it. Are you starting to ghost me, Dave? Right. And so we talk about the context of these emails. Again, maybe a forecast in 2019 said like, hey, this deal is going to, this is ripe to close. Flash forward now with contextual based forecasting, that actually is a pretty red flag. I'll give you another example. Competitive mentions, right? Maybe that was a field in CRM where I enter, hey, they're also looking at Acme, they're looking at Vandalay Industries, two of our top competitors. boy, this is really not a good sign. I think, we only have a third chance, even if, again, we're all on an even playing field here, that we're going to close this deal. Well, the timing, so again, talking about context, the timing of that competitive mention is what's critical and actually a really good predictor if this deal will close. If mentioned early on, actually a really good sign. There's a significant lift in our win rate when competitive mentions happen early in the deal. If they happen late stage, actually decreases our win rate, because what that's showing us is that they're using it for leverage, probably negotiating price. Again, they're still around. That early mention actually signals to us they understand the space we play in, they understand how we solve their problems, and they're really serious because they probably already put together a short list. So they've done their research on their own end. So those are like two good examples of how like context plus activity gives us a really good picture. And then on top of that, something like Gong takes the manual rep entry out of the picture, and we can start to understand, okay, what is the customer actually saying, and use that to inform our forecast versus the sandbagging that might happen or the happy years that might happen across our
Sure.
sales team.
Yeah, absolutely. Or the surface level metric like email velocity. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and sorry, just another thing. Email velocity, again, prior to that red flag study that we conducted after we launched Gone For, we used to say email velocity is like the best predictor of deal health. I think if you look across our social, you'll find an old post or two. But again, it's always nice to be able to update those things and
Yeah.
kind of tell the market what's changed.
Well, I'd imagine it probably is, as long as you're ruling out those scheduling
Yeah.
emails. But as long as you're getting responses from customers, it's a good sign. But if those responses are that we're not interested in meeting, or we're going to push this out 6 months, it's not a good sign.
Exactly. Yep.